I'm a dead man walking, or at least that's the part one play. Heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire, I've spent the last 3 years pretending to be a broke loser, all to dodge a family-arranged corporate merger they call a marriage. My brilliant escape plan? Find a fiercely independent CEO with ice in her veins, sign a 3-year contract to be her nobody husband, and lay low as a delivery guy. I was living the dream, just coasting, waiting for the clock to run out so I could grab my divorce papers and disappear. But my college sweetheart, the one that got away, and her lapdog boyfriend keep showing up to stir the pot. My mother-in-law, who looks at me like I'm something she scraped off her shoe, never misses a chance to remind me what a failure I am. And my wife, my beautiful, brilliant, contractually obligated wife, is convinced I'm the most useless man alive. They're all just waiting for me to crash and burn, to walk away with nothing. My goal has always been simple. Keep my head down, don't get fired from my fake life, and make it to divorce day. Anyone who gets in the way of my quiet little slacker existence is going to find out just how harsh the real world can be. What's that? My wife's company is in trouble? Fine, I'll help her out. Consider it a severance package, paid in advance. My phone buzzed against the handlebars of my e-bike, the screen flashing with a name that made my stomach turn. Sharon Sterling. I just dropped off my 35th DoorDash order of the day. Pulling over to the curb, I twisted the cap off an Arizona iced tea. Today was a good day. 1,095 days. The last day of our 3-year contract. As of tomorrow, I, Ethan Cole, would be a free man. No more playing the part of a deadbeat. No more swallowing insults. I could take my divorce certificate and go back to the world where I belonged. I declined to call. A second later, it rang again, stubborn and insistent. Her. I sighed and swiped to answer. Ethan, where the hell are you? Why didn't you pick up your phone? Sharon, my mother-in-law in name only, had a voice so sharp it could cut glass. On a delivery, I said, taking a sip of tea. It was the truth. Deliveries, that's all you know. Your wife's company is about to go under, and you're still out there driving around with a bag of tacos? You get yourself to the Pinnacle tonight. Ava will be there. We're going to have a family discussion about this divorce. A discussion? I paused. Was this for real? I'd have gone to City Hall yesterday, if I could have. Don't play dumb with me. Take a good long look in the mirror and ask yourself if you've ever been worthy of my Ava. Just get over here. Don't make me say it again. The line went dead. I stared at my phone screen, but instead of feeling annoyed, a slow smile spread across my face. It seemed I wasn't the only one counting down the days. The sweet smell of freedom. I swung my leg back over my trusty e-bike and twisted the throttle. One last delivery, and then it was off to the Pinnacle for my own going-away party. The Pinnacle was one of the most expensive restaurants in Chicago. The cost of a single entree could cover my DoorDash earnings for a week. I parked my e-bike in a back alley and walked right through the front door in my bright red and white delivery jacket. The host started to move to block me, but I gave him Sharon's reservation name. The look on his face shifted from alarm to a kind of pitying recognition. I pushed open the door to the private dining room. They were all there. At the head of the table sat my mother-in-law, Sharon. The second she saw my uniform, her face soured. Next to her was my contract wife, Ava Sterling. She was wearing a crisp white pantsuit, her long dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. She looked as cool and untouchable as the day I first met her. She glanced at me, then looked away as if the sight of me was offensive. And then there were the other two, the real pains in my ass. My college crush, Jessica Miller, and her smug, parasitic boyfriend, Chad Peterson. Well, look what the cat dragged in. It's Chicago's #1 delivery boy, Chad sneered. He was some mid-level manager at a place called Infinity Entertainment, and he oozed a greasy, new money confidence. Tough day on the road, buddy. Have a seat. A single meal here costs more than you make in a month. Sharon cleared her throat loudly, tapping a manicured nail on the table. Ethan, sit down. I asked you here to inform you of a decision. Your Aunt Sharon and I have discussed it, and you and Ava will be going to the courthouse tomorrow to file for divorce. She paused, gesturing toward Chad. Mr. Peterson has informed us that his boss has taken a great interest in Ava. You've been squatting in our lives for 3 years, you useless parasite. It's time for you to go. Ava said nothing the entire time. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. I casually pulled out a chair and picked up my chopsticks, ready to dig in. I've been driving all day. I was starving. You have a nerve to eat? Sharon slapped my hand, sending the chopsticks clattering to the floor. You've dragged the Sterling name through the mud. This divorce is happening. And don't even think about the house or the cars. You're leaving with nothing but the clothes on your back. I looked down at the chopsticks, then at the feast spread across the table. Fine. I raised my hand and motioned to the waiter standing by the door. Excuse me. I'd like to get this to go. The entire room fell silent. Sharon's face went from pale to red to a shade of purple I'd never seen before. She pointed at me, too furious to speak. Chad just laughed. A lost cause. You can't take the cheap out of the man. You want a doggy bag? Can you even afford it? I ignored him, speaking directly to the waiter. This whole table. Box it all up. Except for whatever that pretentious truffle foam soup is. My wife. Excuse me, Ms. Sterling is paying. Ava's posture stiffened. She finally looked directly at me, and her beautiful eyes were filled with pure, cold disgust. She took a black credit card from her purse and tossed it on the table. Box it up for him. The words sounded like a charity donation. I walked out of the Pinnacle carrying several large bags of fancy leftovers. The cool night air felt good. The click of high heels sounded behind me. Ethan, it was Jessica. She wore a stunning dress, her face a perfect mask of concern, tinged with a faint trace of superiority. Are you okay? Sharon is just looking out for Ava. Don't take it to heart, she said, her voice soft and sweet. I looked at her. Back in college, I'd actually had a thing for her. Now all I saw was a fake. I talked to Chad. His company has an opening for a security guard. It's $4,000 a month, room and board included. It's hard work, but it's better than being out in the elements all day. If you want, I can have him. Before she could finish, Chad came rushing up, pulling her behind him as if protecting her from a wild animal. I'm warning you, Cole, stay away from Jessica. You're a delivery boy. Stop dreaming, he said, pulling a few $100 bills from his wallet and contemptuously throwing them at my feet. Take this and get lost. A little tip for your troubles. Don't ever bother Jessica again. The bills fluttered on the pavement, caught in the breeze. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just looked at them. Just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from my family's chief steward, Arthur. Sir, the acquisition of Infinity Entertainment is complete. Infinity Entertainment. Chad's company. I lifted my head and looked at Chad. My expression was the same one you might give a bug right before you squash it. Then I turned, got on my e-bike, and rode away without a backward glance. I didn't touch the money on the ground, but there was no way I was forgetting the leftovers. Watching me leave, Chad assumed I was scared off. He wrapped his arm around Jessica possessively. See? A little cash is all it takes to get rid of guys like him. Total loser. Jessica stared into the darkness where I had disappeared, a thoughtful look on her face. Neither of them knew that the company Chad was so proud of had just changed hands, and I was the new owner. When I went back to the room to grab the takeout boxes, Chad was in the middle of a triumphant speech. Don't you worry, Sharon. My boss gave his word. As soon as Ava is single, the partnership between our company and Sterling Corp gets signed. I'll be the one heading up the project. The sky's the limit. Sharon was beaming. Oh, that's just wonderful. Mr. Peterson, we'll be counting on you to take care of our Ava. Ava sat there, holding a teacup, her expression unreadable. But she didn't object. Maybe in her mind, this was the only way forward. Chad's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, then immediately shot to his feet and scurried to a corner of the room to answer respectfully. Hello, boss. Yes, sir. I'm actually with Sharon and Ava Sterling right now. Yes, we're finalizing the details, just waiting on the divorce. Whatever was said on the other end made Chad's face drain of all color. His back began to hunch over, his voice shifting from sycophantic to terrified. What? Sir? Why? What'd I do wrong? Please no, sir. I worked so hard on this project. Fired? Not just fired, but you're blacklisting me? Why? Boss, you have to give me a reason. His voice grew louder, cracking into a desperate whine. Everyone in the room was staring at him. The call ended. Chad stood frozen, phone in hand, looking like his soul had just been yanked out of his body. What is it, Mr. Peterson? Sharon asked nervously. Chad's lips trembled. He couldn't form a word. I leisurely picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. Oolong. Not bad. Ava's gaze fell on me. For the first time, those icy eyes held something other than disdain. It was a flicker of suspicion. She must have thought the timing was a little too perfect. Heaven 1 second, hell the next. And I, the supposed bystander, was far too calm. Mr. Peterson, say something. Sharon pressed. Chad collapsed back into his chair with a thud, his face ashen. I'm fired. My boss said. I pissed off someone I shouldn't have. He told me to get out. He snapped his head up, his eyes locking onto me with a wild, desperate look. I slowly set down my tea, stood, and picked up my bags of food. Well, dinner's over. I'm heading out. You all enjoy the rest of your night. As I passed Chad, I leaned in and whispered, so only he could hear, I told you to leave me alone. I just want to deliver my food in peace. His whole body shuddered. On the way back, Ava and I were in the same car. She was behind the wheel of her Porsche, and we drove in total silence. The atmosphere in the car was colder than a Chicago winter. I knew what she was thinking. What happened to Chad was too strange, and I was the only variable in the equation. But she couldn't connect the dots. How could a DoorDash driver have that kind of power? So she had to write it off as a coincidence. A terribly unlucky one for him. Her phone rang, shattering the silence. She answered. It was her company's VP, and he sounded frantic. Ms. Sterling, it's bad. Orion Group. They just unilaterally terminated all our contracts. Ava's back went ramrod straight. What? Why? The agreements were already signed. They're saying our company has a credibility issue, and they're demanding we pay a massive penalty for breach of contract. Ms. Sterling, Orion Group is our biggest partner. If they pull out our entire cash flow, it's gone. I could see her knuckles turning white as she gripped the steering wheel. I understand, she said, her voice laced with a tremor she couldn't quite hide. She hung up. The car pulled up to the driveway of our villa. Sharon's car arrived at the same time. She jumped out and ran over, having clearly gotten the news herself. Ava, what's going on with the company? Why would Orion Group just pull out like that? What are we going to do now? Sharon was spinning in frantic circles until her eyes landed on me. She found her target. She pointed a finger right at my nose and screamed, It's you. You're a jinx. Ever since you married into this family, nothing has gone right. Look at you. No money, no ambition, and now you've brought your bad luck down on our company. Get out. Get out of our lives. Ava didn't stop her. She just leaned against the car door, exhausted, and closed her eyes. The weight of impending bankruptcy was a physical force, crushing the air from her lungs. I looked at her pale profile, and something inside me shifted. For 3 years, she'd looked down on me, but she'd never gone out of her way to make my life miserable. She even gave me a monthly allowance, as stipulated in our contract. And besides, I glanced at the date on my phone. The contract was only officially over at midnight, which meant that her company was still, technically, my wife's company. Screw it. Consider it a severance package. Chapter 6 to 7. A single phone call. The lights in the villa were blazing, but the mood was colder than a tomb. Ava sat on the sofa, making one call after another. Her voice went from calm and professional to pleading and finally to helpless. Mr. Davis, we've been partners for years. Director Chun, if you could just reconsider. Hello? Hello. Every call ended with a polite refusal or a click as the other party hung up. Business was a battlefield, and no one helps a losing army. Orion Group was a titan in the industry. If they wanted to crush a small firm like Sterling Corp., no one was brave enough to stand in their way. Sharon was on the other side of the room, sobbing, It's over, it's all over. My house, my designer bags, my afternoon tea parties with the ladies. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. The suffocating despair in the living room was hard to breathe. I finished my water and walked back out, looking at Ava. She had finally put her phone down and was resting her forehead in her hands. She looked like all the strength had been drained from her body. Maybe I can help, I said. The room went instantly silent. Sharon stopped crying and stared at me like I'd just announced I was from Mars. Ava lifted her head, her eyes bloodshot. A bitter smile touched her lips. You? Ethan, how? By asking your manager at DoorDash for a loan. Would you just stay out of this? Sharon shrieked. Go back to your room. I can't even stand the sight of you. I didn't say another word. I walked out to the balcony and slid the glass door shut, sealing off the noise from the living room. I dialed Arthur's number. "Sir." On the other end, Arthur's voice was, as always, calm and respectful. "Arthur," I said, looking out at the city lights, my voice flat. "Look into the partnership between Orion Group and Sterling Corporation." "Of course, sir." "One moment. I have it." Orion Group is a subsidiary controlled by Cole Global's venture capital arm. An hour ago, an Orion executive terminated their partnership with Sterling Corp without consulting the board. The official reason cited was that the Sterling Corp president's husband, that is to say you, sir, is of a lowly status that could damage Orion's corporate image. I almost laughed. So, I was the one who started this fire. Unbelievable. "Arthur, get the CEO of Orion Group on the phone. Tell him he has 30 minutes to personally call Ava Sterling and apologize. Furthermore, tell him to double the investment in her company. All contract terms are to be renegotiated to give Sterling Corp the advantage. If he can't get it done," I paused. "Tell him he can go manage our mines in Alaska." "Yes, sir." I hung up and walked back into the living room. Sharon was back to insulting me, and Ava was curled up on the couch, her head buried in her arms like a wounded animal. My phone stopwatch read exactly 5 minutes. Ava's phone rang. She glanced at the unknown number, her first instinct to decline it. But after a moment's hesitation, she answered. "Hello." Her voice was weak. A frantic, middle-aged man's voice came through the speaker. "Hello. Is this Ms. Ava Sterling? This is David Miller from Orion Group." Ava shot upright. "David Miller, the CEO of Orion Group." "Mr. Miller." Yes, Ms. Sterling. "I am so sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. The contract termination was a huge misunderstanding, a catastrophic error in our internal management. The fool who made that decision has already been fired." Miller's voice was a torrent of urgent, sycophantic apologies. "Ms. Sterling, please don't hold it against us. Our partnership continues. In fact, our board just held an emergency meeting, and we've decided to double our investment. All contract details are now at your complete discretion. Please tell me when you're free. I will come to your office personally to offer my sincerest apologies." Ava just held the phone, frozen solid. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The reversal was more dramatic than any movie she'd ever seen. Sharon had heard everything from the phone and was standing there, mouth agape. Slowly, almost unconsciously, Ava lifted her head. Her gaze traveled across the coffee table and locked onto me. I was leaning against the balcony door, still holding the empty water glass. Our eyes met, and in hers, for the first time, I didn't see ice or disgust. I saw a tidal wave of pure shock and utter confusion. Chapter 8. The mother-in-law's turn after the call. Ava sat on the sofa in a daze for a long time. Sharon tiptoed over. "Ava, was that real? Orion Group. They want to partner with us again." Ava nodded, her mind still reeling from the impossible turn of events. Sharon's eyes darted between me and her daughter. She wasn't a complete idiot. Chad gets fired, and then the Sterling family business is miraculously saved from ruin, both events happening just moments after her loser son-in-law made a few odd statements. If there wasn't a connection, she was blind. She wrung her hands, a smile I had never seen before, a syrupy, fawning expression spreading across her face as she sidled up to me. "So, Ethan," she began tentatively, "about before. Mom was just upset. You know how my temper is. Don't pay it any mind." I glanced at her and said nothing. Do you know someone at Orion Group? You can tell me. I won't tell a soul." I put my glass down. "I don't know anyone," I said lazily. "I have a friend who's a janitor there. I overheard him on the phone saying something about a management screw-up. Guess they picked the wrong company to mess with and are trying to fix it." The excuse was so flimsy, I almost laughed at myself. But Sharon, she bought it. Or rather, she wanted to believe it. Because accepting that her son-in-law was a secret puppet master was a far greater leap of faith than believing he had a janitor friend who overheard corporate gossip. "Oh, I see. So that's what happened. Wow, your friend is really lucky." She slapped her thigh, and the way she looked at me changed completely. "But you brought us that luck. Ethan, you're our family's good luck charm." With that, She bustled into the kitchen and came back with a plate of sliced fruit. Here, have some apple. You must be exhausted after working all day. You just tell Mom what you want to eat, and I'll make it for you. I stared at the plate of unevenly peeled, browning apple slices and fell silent. The woman could change her tune faster than a DJ at a rave. Ava watched this scene unfold, her expression growing more complex. She clearly didn't buy my janitor friend's story. She stood up and walked over to me. We need to talk. She led me into the study. As soon as she closed the door, she got straight to the point. Chat's firing. The call from Orion Group. That was you, wasn't it? Coincidence, I said, leaning against a bookshelf, giving her my standard, infuriating answer. There are no coincidences like this. She took a step closer, and the clean, expensive scent of her perfume filled my nose. Ethan, who are you? For the first time in 3 years, she was actually curious about me. I looked at her and felt a sudden urge to laugh. Who am I? I'm your husband, Ms. Sterling, a delivery driver on the verge of unemployment. And as of tomorrow, I wouldn't even be that. I was reminding her, but I was also reminding myself. Chapter 9, Shadow of the Family. Ava didn't press the issue that night. But the entire atmosphere in the house had changed. Sharon was uncomfortably attentive, constantly asking if I needed anything. Ava's gaze followed me around the room, full of suspicion and questions, a far cry from her usual indifference. Alarm bells were ringing in my head. This was a deviation from the plan. My only goal was to fade away quietly after the divorce. The next day, I didn't go out on deliveries, and nobody mentioned going to the courthouse. I stayed in my room, trying to figure out my exit strategy. That afternoon, a call came from an unknown number. I answered. A voice, old but powerful, spoke on the other end. Young master, it is I. It was the Cole family's head steward, not Arthur. This was the man who answered only to my grandfather. My heart sank. The family is aware of your interference in the affairs of Orion Group, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. The old master is very displeased. When you left home, you promised not to reveal your identity or involve yourself in family assets. I didn't reveal anything, but you used an authority reserved only for the primary heir. That is a violation of the agreement, the steward continued. The Davenport family remains displeased about your rejection of the marriage contract. They have brought the matter up again and are putting significant pressure on the family. The Davenports, the very reason I'd run away in the first place. So what's the point? My voice turned cold. The old master's point is that this game of yours is over. He offers you 2 choices. First, you divorce this Sterling woman immediately and return home to fulfill your contract with the Davenports. The family will forgive your past transgressions. Second, the steward paused, a chill entering his voice. If you refuse to return, the family will leverage its full power to ensure that Sterling Corporation ceases to exist within 1 week. And I do mean completely. My hand tightened around the phone. They knew my weakness. 3 years ago, I'd chosen Ava for this contract marriage precisely because her family was unremarkable and her company was small, unlikely to draw any attention. Now, that small, unremarkable company was the gun they were holding to my head. I understand. I hung up and stood by the window, looking down at the garden where Ava was watering flowers. The sun caught her, casting a soft glow around her sharp business attire. She seemed to sense my gaze and looked up, her eyes finding my window. We stared at each other from 100 feet apart. Her expression held an emotion I couldn't decipher. And I had a choice to make. My freedom, or her entire life's work. It shouldn't have been a difficult decision. I'd spent 3 years on the run for that very freedom. So why did my chest feel so tight? Chapter 10. Let's Get a Divorce Dinner was tense. Sharon kept piling food onto my plate, while Ava kept glancing at me, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I had no appetite. After the meal, as Ava was heading upstairs, I stopped her. The contract is up today, I said. She froze on the stairs, her back to me. Let's go take care of the paperwork tomorrow, I said, forcing my voice to sound as flat and impatient as possible. She was silent for a long moment. Why the rush? She finally asked, her voice a little hoarse. About the company. Thank you. However you did it. Don't thank me. I just didn't want to get a reputation for bankrupting my wife right before a divorce, I said, leaning against the wall with my hands in my pockets. I've had enough of these 3 years. I'm sick of your mother's nagging, and I'm sick of being married to a woman who's basically an iceberg. The contract is up. I don't want to be here 1 second longer. Every word was a calculated blow. I knew it was cruel, but it was the only way to make her sign the papers without a fight. The only way to get her clear of me, so my family would leave her company alone. She finally turned around. Her eyes were red-rimmed, filled with a hurt and disappointment I'd never seen there before. "Is this because of Jessica?" she asked. I didn't answer. Silence was the best confession. She stared at me, then let out a laugh that was more painful than a sob. "Fine, I get it. Ethan Cole, I guess I really misjudged you." She turned and walked up the stairs, never looking back. I watched until she disappeared around the landing, a hollow feeling echoing in my chest. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Arthur. "Get ready. I'm coming back after tomorrow. And draft a compensation package. Greenlight all future projects for Sterling Corporation through Cole Global channels. Make it anonymous. Freedom. I was finally getting it back. So why didn't I feel happy at all? The next morning, we stood outside City Hall, a careful 3 feet of space between us. Neither of us spoke. Ava wore dark sunglasses, hiding her expression. The awkward silence was thick enough to cut with a knife. Just as we were about to walk up the steps, a black Rolls-Royce Ghost glided to a stop at the curb beside us. The door opened, and Arthur stepped out. He was dressed in a flawless butler's uniform, his gray hair perfectly combed. He didn't look at me. He walked directly to Ava and gave a deep, formal bow. "Ms. Sterling, I implore you, do not sign those papers." Ava froze. I froze. "Arthur, what are you doing?" I hissed. He ignored me, straightening up to look Ava in the eye. His tone was sincere. "Ms. Sterling, the young master is only doing this to protect you." Ava's shoulders went rigid. She slowly took off her sunglasses, her gaze shifting from Arthur to me and back again. "I cannot stand by and watch him sacrifice himself like this any longer." Arthur sighed, pulling a leather-bound folder from inside his jacket and handing it to Ava. "If you would please review this, Ms. Sterling. It will explain everything." "Arthur, put that away." I lunged for it, but it was too late. Ava already had it in her hands. She opened the folder. The first page was a summary of my identity. Ethan Cole, sole heir to the Cole Global Empire. Below was a net worth statement with a string of zeros so long it made her fingers tremble. The second page was a copy of our original marriage contract, attached to a background report explaining that I had chosen her for her simple, conflict-free background. The third page detailed the history of the arranged marriage with the Davenport family and the full story of my 3-year flight from home. The fourth page was a printed transcript of a phone call. The timestamp was from yesterday afternoon. The conversation was the one I'd had with the head steward, the ultimatum about divorcing her or watching Sterling Corp burn, laid out in black and white. Ava flipped through the pages, one by one. Her breathing grew short and ragged. When she reached the final page, she lifted her head, her eyes locking onto mine. They were no longer filled with hurt or shock. Now they blazed with a complex fire of anger, compassion, and utter disbelief. "A useless delivery driver." She practically spat the words out, each one dripping with irony. "The multi-billionaire heir, pretending to be a loser to escape an arranged marriage. Forcing a divorce to protect me. Ready to go back and sacrifice yourself?" With every question, she took a step toward me. I took a step back, then another, until my back hit the cold metal of the Rolls-Royce. I was cornered. "Ethan," she said, stopping right in front of me. She looked up, her eyes so red it looked like she might cry tears of blood. "What do you take me for? Some useless porcelain doll that needs you to throw away your own life to protect her?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Every lie, every wall I had built for 3 years had just been demolished. Chapter 12. The ice melts. I stared at her, my mind a complete blank. It was over. All of it. 3 years of meticulous planning, my long-awaited freedom, all of it up in smoke because of Arthur's stunning betrayal. Ava held my gaze for a few seconds longer. Then she did something I never could have predicted. She reached out and took the divorce agreement from my hand. Then, as I watched, she ripped it in half. Strip. And again, until the document that symbolized my freedom was nothing but a pile of confetti drifting from her fingertips. "The divorce is off," she said, dusting the paper fragment from her hands. Her voice was iron. I was completely stunned. What? What do you mean? What do I mean? A slow smile spread across her face. It was the first time I had ever truly seen her smile, and it was like watching a glacier crack open to reveal a hidden spring. It was breathtaking. I mean, my husband isn't some deadbeat delivery driver. He's the sole heir to Cole Global. Why would I divorce him? Am I insane? But my family, your family is going to crush my company. She raised a perfect eyebrow, and the powerful CEO I knew she was came roaring to the surface. Fine, let them try. A week ago, that might have scared me. But now, she reached out and poked me in the chest. My husband is Ethan Cole. With you as my backer, what do I have to be afraid of? Her finger was cool against my shirt, but it sent a jolt through my entire body. Ethan, she said, her voice softening, the 3-year contract became null and void the moment I ripped up those papers. She leaned in, rising on her toes to whisper in my ear, her words a private promise. From now on, this is a real marriage. And if you even think about running, I'll tell the entire world that the great heir of Cole Global is a man who loves and leaves. She pulled back and gave me a wink. Those cool, clear eyes were now sparkling with mischief. I just stood there, speechless. What happened to the divorce? What happened to my freedom? I felt like I had just escaped from a small, comfortable cage, only to find myself in a much larger, more luxurious one, a gilded cage with an automatic lock. Across the way, Arthur leaned against the car, a deeply satisfied smile on his face. I let out a long breath, and a reluctant smile of my own began to form. Fine, maybe this cage wouldn't be so bad after all. End.